You know, I know 100 people are pulling at Governor Palin right now. I just happen to be one of them. Governor Palin, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mark. More importantly, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on the program. But I want to get a little insight from you. My audience does too. First of all, how do you think this campaign's going generally?
Well, I think on the other side of the campaign, this is a game of distraction and division, and nothing should surprise us when we acknowledge that, the left is going to stop at nothing with their friends in the media in trying to distract us from what really matters in the election, which is America on a path towards insolvency and bankruptcy. So in both terms, when you consider that, it's kind of a disheartening campaign, Mark, because I don't see the right side unifying enough based on time-tested truths and solutions to get us out of the woeful economic situation that we're in, to unify and thwart what the left, what the Democrats, what the liberal media is trying to do to us in this campaign.
Well, I hear people saying we're all united, we're all united. You're thinking maybe we're not united enough right now.
Oh, yeah. Look what's happening in the GOP convention right now. I mean, as we speak, look at the power grab that some in the machine are trying to do to grassroots conservatives who are really the engine behind the victory in 2010 and will be the engine behind the GOP's victory in November. The power grab in the GOP is trying to really thump the grassroots conservatives, the average independent, conscientious, almost libertarian-leaning, independent from the machine Republicans who are just trying to defend this republic and have we, the people, our voice be heard.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I was stunned that the RNC and the Romney campaign and everything decided to have this fight to consolidate power in Washington under the RNC, take it away from the state parties and the grassroots activists. You're one of the people who spend the most time with the grassroots activists in the localities and in the states. You see all the energy out there. My concern, I'm curious your opinion. My concern is when the RNC and the campaign pulls a boneheaded move like this, they have to be very careful because down the road they may not be able to count on conservatives.
Well, that's exactly right. And if you consider how much time and resource and energy it wastes to fight against what a power grab like this would result in, that the machine is trying to do, it's just such a waste. It's also indicative, I think, of those consultants and politicos who are just supposedly so smart and so politically astute. It's an indication that they're not so doggone smart. I think that it's the average Republican out there on the front lines trying to get good people elected to put government back on our side and shrink it and defend our republic. It's just the average Republican that's part of the grassroots that I believe has a better gut instinct when it comes to politics, because they wouldn't pull shenanigans like this, like some of those in the machine are trying to pull. And I don't know what happened today as a result of, I don't know, all that inside baseball stuff, Mark, where their committees were voting on whether rule changes would take place and whether even the rule change that I know you covered so well on your show, especially yesterday, whether that's just a red herring for other kind of distracting rules that perhaps could be changed on us. So I don't know what the result was today, but, it's just disheartening to see that there would be an attempt to shoot and kind of just, this action that is resulting in a blow to the grassroots on the front lines, doing the unglamorous hard work needed to get the big dogs elected people. Yeah. It's a blow to us.
Well, what happened is a couple hours ago, the majority report was offered, and Boehner was there running the convention. You don't have to comment on it, I'm just telling you. And he asked if there were any objections A whole bunch of delegates objected, including right in front of his face. And he said, hearing none, the majority report's adopted. So the minority objections weren't even considered or laid on the table. And while the rules you talk about were apparently withdrawn, they had a new rule of sorts that they adopted, which gives the RNC the power between conventions to change rules with a supermajority vote. And you and I both know the president, if it's a Republican, he'll control the RNC, and if he wants to put the screws to the states and the grassroots, they're going to do that. I really object to this. Reagan would never have done anything like this. You know that.
Well, he had that gut instinct to always just fundamentally be able to turn to we the people and what it would be that the average smart Republican, independent, libertarian, leaning outside the machine, grassroots patriot would desire, because it seemed that though he was there in Hollywood and he was such a star, he had such a connection to we the people, and he wouldn't pull such a thing. And you know, that's not to suggest that Romney himself is pulling such a thing, but some of the people who would be surrounding Romney evidently are pulling such a thing because they perhaps are too disconnected from we the people.
Mm-hmm. These consultants, not all of them, but enough of them, these operatives who operate in the shadows and everything, they really are a detriment to our system, aren't they? They come between us and the people who are supposed to represent us, don't you think?
Well, in my experience, Mark, I have learned that too many of these high-paid consultants from the Beltway, they are there for a season, not a reason. They look at politics as a business, a job, not so much will they act on principle and conviction and you know, standing strong on planks in a platform. They're there for a paycheck, and it's quite unfortunate. So sure, that's quite detrimental.
Now, you've been active in a lot of these primaries, and you have a pretty good record, as a matter of fact. And how do you see yourself campaigning in the couple of months ahead?
Well,
are you going to be backing Senate candidates and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. But first and foremost, just using discernment and knowing when to stay out and stay away from some of the campaigns and candidates. You know what I mean? You know,
I do.
You don't invite yourself to a party, and you don't chime in when it would do more harm than good. But where I can help lend some I don't know, maybe some validation for those, especially underdog candidates who are underfunded and maybe not really bright on anybody's radar screen yet, and yet they have the right message and they have the right record of reform that is needed as we will hopefully send them to Washington. For those people to help in the coming days, I will continue to concentrate on these important down ballot races. And, you know, I read that people are saying, oh, she's so irrelevant and that's why she's traveled in the country to, you know, help usher in a new Senate and new congressional members. I'm like, I don't care. I'll take that criticism if they want to throw that way, because it is so important that we replace not just individuals to replace the party in power, but it's important that we concentrate on who and what we will replace these individuals who have been part of the status quo, who will replace them with. I want reformers. I want people with a record who have been willing to stand up and tackle the tough problems, and whom I can trust, and I hope that most Americans will be able to see that they are trustworthy enough to hire them, send them to Washington to turn things around. And we need reformers in there, so I'll concentrate on these important, more localized elections.
Do you think if Barack Obama, my last question, because I know you're busy there, do you think if Barack Obama is reelected that he will continue with what I consider to be certain unconstitutional behavior? As a matter of fact, do you think it'll get worse? Because it doesn't seem like the Republicans know how to stop him, and it doesn't seem like the press gives a damn.
Republicans haven't been able to stop them because it has appeared to me that too many of them in Congress have, I guess, seen their job as compromisers and ones to just go along to get along and not rock too many boats. and yet they need to be rocking the boat there in Washington, D.C. They need to stop what Barack Obama has promised to do to America, and that's fundamentally transform us. My interpretation of that and the manifestation of his promise has been a transformation into something that we aren't going to recognize soon. We will be insolvent. We will be bankrupt, and we will have very poor relationships with allies across the globe that we need as allies to keep us secure. I do believe if he's reelected, things will become much, much worse, because I think that the path that he has put us on it's very aggressive, and it's Katie barred the door. Who is stopping him? The media doesn't hold him accountable. There's been no accountability or punishment, if you will, for the things that he has done that have been, to me, unconstitutional, or at least leaning towards unconstitutionality. I think we're going to see more of that, and it's all the more reason that we elect a very strong and wise Congress to stop any and all actions that he would try to do to America if he were to be reelected, and to be elected, Mark, so that they can undo what he has done thus far.
Well, look, first of all, I want you to know, and you know this, I'm a great fan of yours. I am a great fan of your family for putting up with all the crap that they have to put up with. That's number one. Number two, I also happen to know that virtually every candidate running in the primaries wanted your support. I know that because for some reason many of them contacted me and said, how do we get to Sarah Palin? So I wanted to point that out. And number three, please keep up the good fight, I know you will, with the grassroots and so forth, because I honestly believe, but for the Tea Party and constitutional conservatives, we're not going to save the country. We're just not. And you're one of the great leaders of that movement, and I just want to thank you for millions and millions of my fans and audience out there.
Well, thank you. I tell you, your listeners are just great people, great Americans, and it bodes well for you and the message, the education that you provide. I certainly enjoy listening to you. And, yeah, remember what Reagan reminded us, to stiffen our spine, and then we look left and right, and we see that other spines around us then will be stiffened. So that's what I try to remind people when I talk about the unity that is needed in order to defend our republic and save this country, Mark. Stiffen our spine individually, and others around us will do the same, and then it'll be the unity that we need.
All right. Well, God bless you and your family, and thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I talk to you soon, I hope.